Standing in the doorway of the elegant country club reception hall, I searched for my name card among the white linen tables adorned with cascading orchids. The crystal chandeliers cast warm light over laughing guests as they found their seats for dinner. Table 1 showcased my father and his new bride, Patricia, with my 25-year-old stepbrother, Danny, positioned directly beside Dad like the son he never had. I kept walking past tables 2 through 11, my stomach sinking with each step, until I reached the back corner. Table 12. My name sat beside distant cousins I barely recognized from childhood family reunions. Patricia glided over, her pearl necklace catching the light, wearing that practiced smile she reserved for difficult conversations. "Well, we had to prioritize family seating arrangements," she said sweetly. "Thanks for making it so easy," I replied, grabbing my purse and walking straight out. My hands trembled as I fumbled for my car keys in the parking lot, the sound of celebration echoing from inside the reception hall. The humiliation burned in my chest like acid. This was my father's third wedding, and somehow I had been relegated to sitting with Great Aunt Martha, who remembered me as little Hillary with pigtails even though I was 32 years old and ran the marketing department at one of Denver's top advertising firms. I pressed the unlock button on my key fob, but nothing happened. Walking around to the driver's side, I discovered my silver Honda Accord completely boxed in by catering trucks. The florist's van blocked my front bumper while a massive cake delivery truck sealed off any hope of backing out. Steam practically shot from my ears as I realized I was trapped. "Excuse me, miss." A woman in a black uniform approached, carrying a clipboard thick with invoices. "Are you Hillary Jensen?" "Yes," I answered cautiously. "Thank God. I'm Sandra from Elegant Events Catering. Your father mentioned you'd be handling the final payment tonight. The total comes to $8,400 for the reception service, including the upgraded surf and turf menu and premium wine selection." The ground felt unsteady beneath my feet. "I'm sorry, what payment?" Sandra's eyebrows knitted together with concern. "Mr. Jensen said his daughter would settle the catering bill this evening. He mentioned you were taking care of the reception costs as your wedding gift to the happy couple." My mouth went completely dry. I pulled out my phone to call an Uber, desperate to escape this nightmare, but Sandra continued talking. "Between you and me," she lowered her voice conspiratorially. "Your father seemed really stressed about the finances. He mentioned something about borrowing against his house to cover the wedding expenses. I felt terrible for him, honestly. Has clearly struggling but wanted to give his bride a beautiful celebration." The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. Dad had been calling me every few weeks for the past 6 months, asking for small loans, $500 here for car repairs, $1,000 there for emergency dental work. I had written check after check, thinking I was helping during a rough patch. Now I realized he had been building up to this moment, setting me up to foot the bill for his elaborate wedding while simultaneously snubbing me at the reception. "I need to make a phone call," I told Sandra, stepping away. The Uber app showed a 20-minute wait time, 20 more minutes in this parking lot, surrounded by reminders of how little I apparently meant to my own father. I walked to the far edge of the lot, past the expensive cars belonging to Patricia's law firm colleagues, and called my best friend Jessica. "Hill? Why are you calling? Aren't you supposed to be at your dad's wedding reception?" "Jess, I just walked out. You're not going to believe what happened." I recounted the seating arrangement disaster and the catering bill ambush. Jessica's sharp intake of breath told me everything I needed to know. "Hillary, honey, please tell me you're not actually considering paying for their reception. I don't know what to do. Sandra seems like a nice woman just trying to do her job. It's not her fault Dad set this up. This is financial manipulation, plain and simple. Your father is a grown man who chose to throw an expensive party he couldn't afford. That's not your responsibility." Another catering employee approached, this one carrying a large floral arrangement toward the building. "Miss Jensen? I'm Tom from the flower shop. Your dad mentioned you'd also be covering the floral bill tonight. $3,200 for the ceremony arrangements and reception centerpieces." My knees nearly buckled. $11,600. In one evening. "Tom, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "Oh no, your father was very clear. He said his successful daughter always takes care of family financial matters. Really wonderful to have that kind of support, you know? My own kids never help with anything." I felt nauseated. Dad had been bragging about my financial stability to vendors while simultaneously treating me like an afterthought at his own wedding. The Uber notification chimed that my driver was approaching. "He'll need to call you both tomorrow." I managed to tell Sandra and Tom before climbing into the back seat of the white Toyota Camry. "Rough night?" asked the driver, a kind-looking woman in her 50s. You could say that. As we pulled away from the country club, I turned off my phone completely. Whatever financial crisis Dad had created for himself would have to wait until morning. I needed space to process the betrayal without the pressure of immediate demands for money. The city lights blurred past the window as we drove toward my downtown apartment, and for the first time in months, I felt the strange relief of being completely unreachable. Sunlight streamed through my bedroom curtains as I slowly emerged from the deepest sleep I'd had in weeks. My phone had remained powered off since leaving the wedding disaster, giving me 12 blissful hours of peace. But reality came crashing back as soon as I pressed the power button. 47 missed calls, 23 voicemails, 31 text messages. The first voicemail made my stomach lurch. Dad's voice sounded strained and panicked. "Hillary, sweetheart, we have a family emergency." Patricia's mother collapsed during the reception and had to be rushed to the hospital in Phoenix. "The doctors say she had a massive stroke. We need to fly out immediately, but the wedding expenses maxed out all our credit cards. Can you please call me back right away?" The next message, time-stamped just 20 minutes later, revealed Patricia sobbing in the background while Dad's voice cracked with desperation. "Hillary, please pick up your phone. Margaret is in intensive care and we can't get a flight because our cards are declined." Patricia is beside herself. I know last night was awkward with the seating situation, but family comes first in emergencies. I scrolled through message after message, each one more frantic than the last. But the fourth voicemail introduced a completely different crisis. Danny's slurred voice calling from jail. "Hey, Hillary, it's Danny. I'm in a bit of trouble here. Got pulled over leaving the reception and apparently I was over the legal limit. Bail is set at $5,000 and Dad's phone keeps going to voicemail. Can you come get me out? I've got work Monday morning and can't afford to lose this job." My head spun as I continued listening. More messages from Dad revealed the scope of the financial catastrophe. His business partner Marcus had left an ultimatum. Pay back the outstanding company loan of $15,000 by Monday morning, or face immediate dissolution of their construction partnership. "Hillary, Marcus is threatening everything we've built. 20 years of business down the drain if I can't make this payment. I know I should have told you how tight things have gotten, but I didn't want to worry you. Your old dad bit off more than he could chew with this wedding, and now everything's falling apart at once." The irony struck me like a physical blow. While I was being seated with distant relatives and treated like an outsider, I was apparently the family's designated financial rescue squad. Patricia's sweet voice appeared in message number 12. "Hillary, I know we haven't always seen eye to eye, but your father is falling apart. Has so ashamed of the money troubles that he can't even look at me. Margaret might not survive this stroke, and we can't even be there for her final moments. Please find it in your heart to help us. Hello, I'm delighted to assist you with our voice services. Choose a voice that resonates with you, and let's begin our creative audio journey together." Hello, I'm delighted to assist you with our voice services. Choose a voice that resonates with you, and let's begin our creative audio journey together. Not only had Dad manipulated me into being the family ATM, but he had apparently told everyone from vendors to hospital staff that I was financially responsible for everyone's emergencies. The afternoon sun moved across my living room as I sat in complete silence, processing the magnitude of the situation. Every few months, Dad had called asking for help with some financial crisis. A roof repair, medical bills, Danny's college expenses, car troubles. I had written check after check, thinking I was occasionally helping during rough patches. Now I realized I had been systematically funding everyone's lifestyle while they lived beyond their means. The pattern was crystal clear. Dad borrowed money constantly, Danny spent irresponsibly knowing I would bail him out, and Patricia encouraged the dependency while treating me like an inconvenience. The wedding seating arrangement wasn't just thoughtless rudeness. It was a calculated message about my place in the family hierarchy, essential for financial support but unworthy of respect or consideration. I opened a bottle of wine and drew a hot bath, deciding that whatever crisis was happening in Phoenix would have to resolve itself without my immediate intervention. For the first time in years, I was going to put my own emotional well-being ahead of everyone else's financial emergencies. The 47 missed calls could wait another day. Monday morning brought a harsh awakening that shattered any hope this was just a temporary family crisis. My coffee had barely finished brewing when the phone rang with a call from First National Bank. Miss Jensen? This is David Martinez from our loan department. We need to discuss some overdue payments on accounts where you're listed as the primary guarantor. I'm sorry, what accounts? You co-signed for a business loan for Jensen Construction 3 years ago. The account is now 60 days past due, and according to our records, you're responsible for the outstanding balance of $32,000. We also show you as guarantor on a personal loan for Daniel Jensen in the amount of $18,000, which is also in default. The room started spinning. Can you hold on just a moment, please? I grabbed my laptop and logged into my bank account, searching for any record of these loans. Hidden in my email was a folder labeled Family Financial Documents that I apparently had created but never thoroughly reviewed. Inside were PDF copies of loan applications, all bearing my electronic signature. Mr. Martinez, I need to understand something. How exactly did I sign these documents? Our records show you came into the branch with your father and signed all guarantor paperwork in person. You provided employment verification and submitted to a credit check. The loans were approved based primarily on your excellent credit score and stable income. My hands shook as I searched through my calendar from 3 years ago. There it was. Lunch with Dad, help with business paperwork. I vaguely remembered him saying he needed a co-signer for some construction equipment financing, but I had trusted him completely and signed whatever he put in front of me. Mr. Martinez, what happens if these loans aren't brought current? As the guarantor, you become immediately responsible for full payment. If payment isn't received within 30 days, begin garnishment proceedings against your wages and assets. After hanging up, I discovered the true scope of my financial entanglement. A joint credit card with Patricia that I thought was for emergencies only showed a balance of $21,000. The charges revealed a disturbing pattern: weekly shopping sprees, expensive dinners, luxury spa treatments, and designer clothing purchases. But the most shocking discovery came when I called the insurance company about my mother's life insurance policy. Mom had died 5 years ago, leaving me as the sole beneficiary of a $200,000 policy. I had left the money invested, thinking of it as my future retirement security. Miss Jensen, I show that you've taken loans against this policy totaling $45,000 over the past 2 years. Your current available cash value is $158,000. I've never taken any loans against my mother's life insurance. Our records show the loan applications were submitted online using your account credentials. The funds were deposited into the joint checking account you share with Robert Jensen. My vision blurred with rage. I had given Dad online access to help me manage the account after Mom's death, trusting him to handle any routine paperwork. Instead, he had been systematically draining my inheritance to fund his lifestyle and Danny's expenses. I immediately called the family attorney who had handled Mom's estate, Margaret Walsh. Her secretary scheduled an emergency appointment for that afternoon. Margaret's law office overlooked downtown Denver, and her serious expression told me she had disturbing news before she even spoke. Hillary, I'm glad you called. I've been meaning to contact you about some irregularities I discovered during a routine review of your mother's estate documents. She spread several papers across her mahogany desk. These are signature comparison analyses I ordered after noticing some inconsistencies. It appears that someone has been forging your signature on various financial documents related to your inheritance. My blood ran cold. What kind of documents? Attempts to transfer your mother's investment portfolio into joint family accounts, applications to sell the lake house property that legally belongs to you, and authorization forms to give your father power of attorney over your inherited assets. Margaret pointed to clearly different handwriting samples. The forgeries are quite sophisticated, but they failed authentication analysis. Your father brought Patricia to my office 6 months ago, claiming you had requested these transfers to promote family unity after his marriage. I never authorized any of that. I suspected as much, which is why I delayed processing and ordered the handwriting analysis. Hillary, Someone has been systematically attempting to gain control of your mother's entire estate. If these forgeries had been successful, you would have lost everything your mother worked so hard to leave you. Margaret opened another file containing security camera footage from the bank. The manager sent me this after I requested information about the insurance policy loans. Watch this. The grainy video showed Dad and Patricia at a bank counter, with Patricia clearly signing documents while Dad pointed to various sections. They appeared comfortable and familiar with the process, as if they had done this multiple times. They've been using your account access to submit loan applications against your mother's life insurance. The bank employees assumed Patricia was you, since she came in with your father and had all the correct account information. I stared at the evidence of their betrayal, feeling sick to my stomach. What are my options? You could pursue criminal charges for forgery and identity theft. The evidence is quite clear. However, that would likely destroy your family relationships permanently. At this point, Margaret, I'm not sure those relationships are worth preserving. She nodded sympathetically. There's also the option of restructuring everything to protect your remaining assets while giving your family a chance to make things right. But Hillary, you need to understand the scope of what's happened. Your credit score is being damaged by missed loan payments you didn't know you were responsible for. Your mother's inheritance has been compromised. Your financial future is at serious risk. Driving home from Margaret's office, I realized that Dad's wedding seating arrangement wasn't just disrespectful. It was a calculated test to see how much abuse I would tolerate while continuing to provide financial support. Patricia had been orchestrating a systematic theft of my inheritance while treating me like an unwelcome guest at family events. The 47 missed calls from the weekend suddenly made perfect sense. Without my continued financial support, their entire house of cards was collapsing. Dad's business was failing, Danny was in legal trouble, Patricia's mother needed expensive medical care, and all their credit cards were maxed out. I was the only thing standing between them and complete financial ruin. For the first time, I held all the power in our family dynamic. The question was, what was I going to do with it? Tuesday morning brought another revelation that made my blood boil with righteous fury. Margaret Walsh called before 8 o'clock with urgent news that couldn't wait for normal business hours. Hillary, I've been digging deeper into the financial documents, and what I found is far worse than identity theft. Someone has been conducting a calculated, long-term campaign to systematically steal your entire inheritance. I gripped the phone tighter, my coffee growing cold on the kitchen counter. What do you mean? Remember the family lake house your mother left you? The one with all those childhood memories where you and your mom used to spend summers together? Patricia and your father have been working with a real estate agent to list it for sale. They forged a power of attorney document claiming you granted them authority to liquidate all inherited property for family investment purposes. The lake house. My sanctuary. The place where Mom and I had spent countless weekends fishing from the dock, roasting marshmallows by the fire pit, and planning my future during those peaceful summer evenings. The thought of losing it made my chest tighten with grief and rage. The realtor contacted my office yesterday because he was concerned about the authenticity of the paperwork. Smart man. The listing agreement showed an asking price of $450,000, with the proceeds intended for deposit into an account controlled jointly by your father and Patricia. They were going to sell my mother's house and keep all the money. It gets worse, Hillary. I found additional forged documents attempting to transfer your mother's investment portfolio, worth approximately $320,000, into something called the Jensen Family Trust, with Patricia as the primary trustee and beneficiary. I sank onto my couch, overwhelmed by the scope of their betrayal. This wasn't just financial irresponsibility or poor money management. This was organized theft of everything my mother had worked her entire life to leave me. Margaret, how is any of this legal? How could banks and real estate agents not verify these signatures? Unfortunately, the forgeries are quite sophisticated. Patricia apparently studied samples of your signature from various family documents over several years. The fake signatures are close enough to fool casual inspection, especially when accompanied by your father vouching for their authenticity. Margaret's voice took on a more serious tone. Hillary, I need you to understand something crucial. Your father has been actively participating in this scheme. Security footage from multiple banks shows him accompanying Patricia and confirming her identity as you. Has been telling financial institutions that you're too busy with work to handle routine paperwork, So Patricia manages these matters on your behalf. The betrayal cut deeper than I had imagined possible. Dad wasn't just passively allowing Patricia to manipulate the family finances. He was actively orchestrating the theft of my mother's legacy, the inheritance she had specifically left to me because she knew I would honor her memory and use the money responsibly. There's more, Margaret continued. I found applications for home equity loans against the lake house property, attempted withdrawals from your mother's retirement accounts, and even paperwork trying to claim you as a dependent on their tax returns to access your inheritance tax benefits. My phone buzzed with another call. Dad's number appeared on the screen, but I let it go to voicemail. Margaret, what happens now? Can we stop all of this? I've already contacted the banks and real estate agent to flag these accounts for fraud. No further transactions can occur without your physical presence and proper identification. But Hillary, you need to decide whether to pursue criminal charges. The evidence of forgery and identity theft is overwhelming. After hanging up with Margaret, I listened to Dad's latest voicemail. His voice sounded desperate and defeated. Hillary, I know you're upset about the wedding situation, but Patricia's mother is dying and we can't even afford to stay in Phoenix for her final days. I've made some mistakes with money, but family should stick together during emergencies. Your mother would want you to help us. The manipulation was breathtaking. He was using my mother's memory to justify stealing her inheritance, claiming she would want me to fund everyone else's irresponsible lifestyle while they simultaneously robbed me blind. I called my bank and requested immediate fraud protection on all accounts. Next, I contacted the credit monitoring service to place security freezes preventing any new loans or credit applications. Then I drove to the lake house to see the property with my own eyes, wondering if I would find a for sale sign already planted in the front yard. The house looked exactly as it had during my last visit 6 months ago, nestled among tall pine trees with the dock extending into the crystal clear water. But inside I discovered signs that someone had been living there recently. The refrigerator contained expensive wine and gourmet foods. The master bedroom showed evidence of recent occupation, designer clothing in the closets, expensive jewelry on the nightstand, and receipts from luxury restaurants scattered across the dresser. Patricia and Dad had been using my inheritance property as their personal vacation retreat, entertaining guests with expensive dinners and wine, while simultaneously trying to sell it out from under me. They had been living like wealthy retirees, using my mother's money while claiming poverty whenever I questioned their constant financial emergencies. The final straw came when I found a notebook on the kitchen counter containing detailed calculations in Patricia's handwriting. Page after page showed projected income from selling the lake house, liquidating the investment accounts, and borrowing against the life insurance policy. She had been planning this theft for years, calculating exactly how much money she could extract from my inheritance, while keeping me financially responsible for everyone's daily expenses. At the bottom of the final page, in Patricia's neat script, were the words, Hillary's inheritance equals our retirement fund. She makes enough salary to support herself without this money. Family obligation. I took photos of every page, then locked up the house and drove straight back to Margaret's office. It was time to stop being the family's financial doormat and start protecting what my mother had worked so hard to leave me. Wednesday brought a cascade of financial disasters that revealed just how completely my family's survival depended on my continued support. Without my usual pattern of quiet financial rescue, their entire world was crashing down in spectacular fashion. The first crisis call came from Marcus, Dad's business partner, at 6:30 in the morning. His voice was strained with frustration. Hillary, I'm sorry to call so early, but your father isn't answering his phone and we have a serious problem. The bank is demanding immediate payment on our company loan, and I'm not going down with this ship. I'm terminating our partnership agreement today unless that $15,000 payment is made by noon. I had met Marcus several times over the years. He was a decent man who had worked alongside Dad for 2 decades, building homes throughout the Denver suburbs. But apparently Dad had been lying to Marcus about their financial situation just like he had been lying to me. Marcus, what exactly did my father tell you about the company finances? He said you were providing bridge financing to help us through some temporary cash flow issues. I assumed you were a silent business partner helping with short-term loans. But now the bank is saying the company account has been overdrawn for 3 months. I never agreed to provide business financing. I've been giving Dad money thinking it was for personal emergencies. Marcus' heavy sigh told me everything I needed to know. Hillary, I can't afford to lose my house because of your father's financial problems. 20 years of partnership, and he's been lying to me about everything. I'm filing for immediate business dissolution this afternoon. An hour later, Danny called from jail with his own crisis. His voice was thick with panic. Hillary, the bail bondsman is threatening collection action because nobody paid my bail after 3 days. My court appearance is Friday morning, and if I don't show up, they'll issue a warrant. I already called in sick to work twice this week. If I lose this job, I'll never be able to pay you back for all the help you've given me. The irony was incredible. Danny was worried about paying me back while simultaneously expecting me to solve his current crisis. The pattern of dependency was so deeply ingrained that he couldn't even see the contradiction. But the most devastating call came from Patricia herself, sobbing hysterically from Phoenix. Hillary, Margaret passed away 2 hours ago. The hospital is demanding payment for 5 days of intensive care treatment before they'll release her body for funeral arrangements. The total bill is $37,000, and they won't accept payment plans. I can't even bring my mother home to bury her properly. Despite everything Patricia had done, the pain in her voice was genuine. Losing a parent was devastating under any circumstances, and being unable to afford proper funeral arrangements added another layer of heartbreak to an already tragic situation. Patricia, I'm very sorry for your loss, but I need you to understand that I can't keep solving everyone's financial emergencies. Hillary, I know I haven't always been the stepmother you deserved, but this isn't about money anymore. This is about basic human decency. I just watched my mother die, and I can't even give her a dignified funeral because your father spent all our savings on a wedding we couldn't afford. Her admission was startling. Patricia was finally acknowledging that Dad had created this financial catastrophe through irresponsible spending, but she still expected me to provide the solution. Throughout Wednesday afternoon, my phone rang constantly with calls from creditors, vendors, and collection agencies. The florist was threatening legal action over the unpaid wedding bills. The photographer was demanding payment before releasing any wedding pictures. Even the cake designer was calling about a bounced check. But the most shocking call came from Patricia's lawyer in Phoenix. Miss Jensen, I'm handling Mrs. Collins' estate, and Patricia mentioned you might be able to help with some immediate financial arrangements. The funeral home requires payment up front for their services, and there are outstanding medical bills that need to be settled before the estate can be distributed. I'm not financially responsible for Mrs. Collins' final expenses. I understand. But Patricia explained that you usually handle family financial emergencies. She mentioned you have access to significant inheritance funds that could cover these costs temporarily until the estate is settled. I hung up in disbelief. Even during her mother's death, Patricia was trying to manipulate me into paying bills that weren't my responsibility, while simultaneously attempting to steal my actual inheritance. The pattern was becoming crystal clear. Dad, Patricia, and Danny had built their entire lifestyle around my financial support. Hello, I'm delighted to assist you with our voice services. Choose a voice that resonates with you, and let's begin our creative audio journey together. They had created this crisis through years of irresponsible choices, and now they were experiencing the natural consequences of those decisions. The desperate voicemails, tearful phone calls, and emotional manipulation continued throughout the evening. But I had finally recognized the pattern for what it was: a systematic exploitation of my love and loyalty while treating me as nothing more than an unlimited source of money to fund their poor choices. Tomorrow, I would start taking control of the situation on my terms, not theirs. Thursday morning marked the beginning of my complete transformation from family ATM to family leader. I had spent 3 sleepless nights analyzing the scope of financial manipulation, and now it was time to restructure everything according to my terms, not their emergencies. I began with a conference call that would change our family dynamics forever. Margaret Walsh, my accountant Robert Chen, and loan officer David Martinez joined me in Margaret's law office to create a comprehensive financial restructuring plan. Gentlemen, I need to establish immediate control over all family financial obligations while protecting my own assets from further fraud. I announced with a confidence that surprised even me. This situation ends today. David Martinez spread the loan documents across the conference table. Miss Jensen, as guarantor on these accounts, you have the right to assume control of the underlying assets. Since your father defaulted on his business loan, You can claim ownership of Jensen Construction's equipment and contracts to protect your financial exposure. What does that mean practically? It means you become the primary owner of the construction company. Your father can continue working, but as your employee rather than the owner. Margaret nodded approvingly. Hillary, you also have legal grounds to assume ownership of your father's house since you're guaranteeing the mortgage payments. Instead of continuing to make loan payments on property you don't control, you can transfer the deed into your name and allow your father to live there under terms you establish. The plan was audacious but necessary. Rather than continuing to pour money into other people's financial disasters, I would take ownership of the assets my money was protecting and establish clear boundaries for everyone's behavior going forward. What about Danny's situation? Robert Chen consulted his notes. You're guaranteeing $18,000 in student loans that he's not paying. You have the option to pay off his debt and require him to repay you directly under a structured plan you control. This removes the bank from the equation and puts you in charge of his financial accountability. And Patricia's mother's funeral expenses. That's more complicated. Margaret admitted. You have no legal obligation there, but you could establish a trust fund for funeral costs with strict conditions attached. Patricia would have to meet specific requirements to access the funds. Over the next 4 hours, we crafted a comprehensive financial restructuring that would protect my assets while giving everyone a chance to earn back my trust through responsible behavior. The terms were non-negotiable. For Dad, I would pay off his business loan and assume ownership of Jensen Construction, with Dad working as operations manager at a fair salary. I would pay off his house and transfer the deed to my name, allowing him and Patricia to live there rent-free as long as they met behavioral expectations. All credit cards and loans would be consolidated under my control. For Danny, I would pay his bail, legal fees, and student loans, but he would enter a rehabilitation program for alcohol abuse and work full-time to repay me at $200 per month. No exceptions, no excuses. For Patricia, I would establish a $10,000 trust fund for her mother's funeral expenses, accessible only after she completed financial responsibility counseling and signed agreements acknowledging the forgery attempts. Friday afternoon, I called Dad and requested a family meeting at the lake house. His voice was hoarse with desperation. Hillary, thank God you're finally returning my calls. Everything is falling apart here and I don't know what to do. Dad, I'm driving up to the lake house tomorrow morning. I need you, Patricia, and Danny to meet me there at 10 o'clock. We're going to resolve all of these financial issues, but it's going to happen on my terms. Of course, sweetheart. Whatever you think is best. I know I've made some mistakes with money management. Dad, this goes far beyond mistakes. We'll discuss everything tomorrow. Saturday morning arrived crisp and clear, with golden sunlight reflecting off the lake water as I unlocked the front door of my inheritance property. I had prepared detailed documents outlining everyone's new financial arrangements, with copies for each family member to review and sign. Dad arrived first, looking older and more defeated than I had ever seen him. The stress of the past week had carved deep lines around his eyes, and his usually confident demeanor had been replaced by nervous uncertainty. Hillary, I owe you an enormous apology. Save it for when Patricia and Danny get here. We're going to discuss everything once, and then we're moving forward with clear expectations. Patricia arrived 20 minutes later, her face puffy from crying and her usual polished appearance replaced by grief and exhaustion. Danny showed up 30 minutes late, still wearing the clothes he had slept in at jail. I spread the financial documents across the dining room table where my mother and I had played countless card games during summer vacations. Here's how this is going to work, I announced, my voice steady and authoritative. I'm taking control of all family financial obligations, but everyone will earn their support through responsible behavior and accountability. Dad's face paled as I explained his new employment status and living arrangement. Patricia sat in stunned silence when I described her trust fund conditions and the consequences for her forgery attempts. Danny shifted uncomfortably as I outlined his repayment schedule and rehabilitation requirements. These terms are non-negotiable, I concluded. Anyone who doesn't agree can figure out their own financial solutions without my involvement. The power dynamic had completely reversed. Instead of them making demands and me scrambling to meet their needs, I was establishing boundaries and they were forced to either accept my conditions or face the consequences of their choices alone. For the first time in my adult life, I was finally putting my own financial security and emotional well-being ahead of everyone else's irresponsible decisions. 6 months later, our family looked nothing like the dysfunctional mess that had exploded during Dad's wedding weekend. The comprehensive restructuring had transformed everyone's behavior in ways I never could have imagined when I first walked out of that reception hall. Dad adapted to his new role with surprising grace and genuine appreciation. Running Jensen Construction under my ownership had actually relieved him of the financial stress that had been crushing him for years. Without the pressure of managing business loans and equipment payments, he could focus on what he did best: building quality homes and managing construction crews. "Hillary, I need to tell you something," he said during our monthly family dinner at the lake house. "I haven't felt this relaxed about work in over a decade. Having you handle the business finances means I can sleep at night without worrying about making payroll or covering equipment repairs." His honesty was refreshing. For the first time since my mother's death, Dad was talking to me like an equal adult rather than treating me like an unlimited source of emergency funding. "I'm proud of how you've handled everything, sweetheart. Your mother would be amazed at the business leader you've become. I just wish I had been smart enough to make you my partner years ago instead of creating this financial disaster." Patricia's transformation had been the most dramatic. The forced financial responsibility counseling had helped her understand how her spending habits and manipulation had damaged family relationships. Working as a volunteer at the hospital where her mother had died gave her a sense of purpose beyond shopping and social events. "Hillary, I owe you more than an apology," she said, setting down her coffee cup after dinner. "I convinced myself that your inheritance was family money that should be shared equally. But that was just greed and jealousy talking. Your mother left that money specifically to you because she trusted your judgment. I tried to steal that trust, and am ashamed of what I did." Her acknowledgement felt genuine rather than manipulative. Patricia had learned to manage household expenses on a realistic budget, finding satisfaction in careful financial planning rather than impulse purchases funded by credit cards. "I've been thinking about going back to work," she continued. "My law degree is 20 years old, but maybe I could start with part-time legal research or paralegal work. I want to contribute to our household income instead of just spending money we don't have." Dan's recovery had been the most challenging, but ultimately the most rewarding transformation. The structured rehabilitation program had forced him to confront his alcohol abuse and take responsibility for the consequences of his poor decisions. "Hello, I'm delighted to assist you with our voice services. Choose a voice that resonates with you, and let's begin our creative audio journey together." "Hello, I'm delighted to assist you with our voice services. Choose a voice that resonates with you, and let's begin our creative audio journey together." Patricia had developed a genuine friendship with me for the first time, built on honesty rather than manipulation. We worked together on household budgets and long-term planning, with Patricia contributing ideas instead of just making demands. Danny was becoming the responsible young man I had always hoped he could be, learning valuable lessons about accountability and personal growth through structured challenges rather than constant bailouts. As I looked around the dinner table at my transformed family, I realized that setting firm boundaries hadn't destroyed our relationships. Instead, it had created space for genuine love and respect to grow. "I have an announcement," I said, raising my water glass in a toast. "Next month, I'm establishing the Margaret Jensen Foundation using part of Mom's inheritance. We're going to provide financial literacy, education, and emergency assistance to families struggling with money management." Dad's eyes filled with tears. "Your mother would be so proud, Hillary. She always said you had the wisdom and strength to help people make better choices. The foundation will offer workshops on budgeting, saving, and avoiding debt traps. But it will also provide temporary assistance with clear expectations for recipients to learn responsible financial habits." Patricia nodded enthusiastically. "I'd love to volunteer with the foundation. My experience with financial irresponsibility could help other people recognize the warning signs before they destroy their family relationships." As we cleaned up after dinner, I reflected on how completely our family story had changed. The woman who had walked out of that wedding reception feeling humiliated and taken for granted had discovered her own strength and leadership abilities. The family members who had treated me like a walking ATM had learned to respect my boundaries while receiving the support they needed to build healthier lives. Setting firm boundaries hadn't been cruel or selfish. It had been the most loving thing I could do for everyone involved. By refusing to enable irresponsible behavior, I had created space for genuine personal growth and authentic family relationships. My mother's inheritance had been preserved and would now help other families avoid the financial manipulation and dependency that had nearly destroyed us. Dad was working with dignity and purpose. Patricia was developing genuine self-worth, and Danny was learning accountability and responsibility. Most importantly, I had learned that true family love requires mutual respect and honest communication, not financial dependence and emotional manipulation. The wedding seating arrangement that had felt like such a cruel rejection had actually been the catalyst for creating the strong, healthy family relationships I had always wanted but never known how to build. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever found yourself constantly financially supporting family members who didn't appreciate your sacrifices? How did you handle the situation when family members prioritized their wants over your feelings? Share your story in the comments below because your experience might help someone else who's struggling with similar family dynamics. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming family challenges and finding your inner strength. Share this with anyone who might need to hear that setting boundaries is an act of love, not selfishness. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it inspires you to value yourself enough to demand the respect you deserve from the people who matter most. Remember, healthy families are built on mutual respect and genuine love, not financial obligation and emotional manipulation.